Today's tutorial happens to be the second in the array panel series that I'm doing. Now, if you missed the first one, which is the spot remover, the link will be in the description so you can get to watch it. Now, this particular video is about frequency separation using the mixer brush tool, but then we'll use the action from the array panel. So without wasting much time, let's just go straight into that. So guys, before we move into this tutorial, let me just show you a quick before and after. Now on the left is the previous tutorial, just removing the blemishes on her face, and to the right is with frequency separation applied using the mixer brush. Hi guys, welcome back. Now this is our beautiful Ikuya Akoto. We had this shoot live, so the video should be in my playlist, which is live sessions. So if you want to know how we came by this image, you can just watch that playlist and you have an idea. This is the first video in the series I'm doing that has to do with the Retouching Academy Panel. Now, first of all, what's the Retouching Academy Panel or the Array Panel? It's a panel that has lots of shortcuts to commonly used procedures and then tools in Photoshop. Now, there are people who are of the view that, once they don't have the Array Panel, their images don't come out dope, their images don't pop, their images are dull and stuff. No, that's a wrong assumption, because this particular panel does nothing to your images. It's just a panel full of shortcuts. You don't achieve anything by using this. You don't lose anything by not using it. The only thing it does is, because it's a panel with shortcuts, it makes your workflow better. You are able to achieve things faster and easier than going around and then clicking them. This just groups the commonly used procedures and tools at one place for you so that your workflow will be faster. Now, if you look at this image, as you can see, we have the healing layer. We did the spot remover in a previous video, so I'll include a link in the description to that video. So if you want to learn how to do spot remover, you can watch that and then learn from it. So now what we are going to do in this first series is frequency separation. What does frequency separation do? It's a process whereby you break down the image into two different layers, the texture and then the color, so that you independently work on each of them. That way you are able to maintain the level of the work you want to do. If you want to work on the texture, you have a layer for that. If you want to work only on the color, that's to correct the skin tone and all that, the blending, then you have the color layer to work with. So in a way, it's non-destructive, even though if you push it too much to its limits, you end up destroying the image. But by default, if you are very moderate with it, you won't destroy your image. There are two types. There is the 8-bit and the 16-bit. Now, we imported this image in Photoshop from CaptureOne using 8-bit. So we are going to use 8-bit for that. So you just click on 8-bit. This Gaussian blur, it's an action. It's a recorded process, which is an action. So it will ask you what level, what radius you want to choose. Mostly I'll leave it at 6.4. That will make it the image much more smooth. But now I have developed a sense for detailed images. I want more details in the skin. I don't want to sharpen the image after retouching. So I'll go somewhere around 9. So once we go to 9, I see how it is. I like it. Now, if we realize 9 won't work for us, we'll just delete it and then create another one. So let's just click on OK. So by doing that, we have 3 layers in the frequency separation folder. The high frequency, which is the texture, low frequency, which is the colors. Then we have an empty layer in the middle here for correcting the tones. In this particular scenario, I'm going to use the mixer brush tool, which can be found right here. If you click on the brush panel here, you get to see the various brushes. So you choose the mixer brush tool. Now, I learned this technique from Prince Mason from Nigeria. I keep giving him credit for that. Over here, the settings here were settings from his video. I didn't understand them, but I just used them because they work for me. Just, I think the only thing I altered is the flow over here to 30%. Otherwise, everything else is how Prince Mason put it there. So now what the mixer brush does is, you use it to blend the tones in the various areas so that they get like the intersection where the two different tones meet. You blend it well, so it's that sharp contrast there that makes your image look rough. So once you're able to blend the tones at various regions, you're able to get a smoother image, not necessarily a blurred image, but it's smooth, still maintaining the texture. So with that, let's zoom in. This is 100%. So if we look at this, before you start retouching, you should have a roadmap of what you want to do. If you look here, see, between the highlights and the shadows, the transition is very, very steep. If we go around the picture, we realize all these places, we have sharp transitions. So we are going to fix all that using the mixer brush tool. Now, if you're retouching, you don't need to zoom in like this and then start using your mixer brush tool. Same way with dodge and burn. Otherwise, what you see won't be what you get. So it's always good to zoom out to probably, this is how it's going to appear mostly on smartphones and tablets. So we'll be in something like this, but sometimes I prefer going 25%. With the mixer brush tool selected, I use the brackets keys on the keyboard, open and close, to increase or reduce the size of the mixer brush. So on the low frequency, which is the color layer, we are going to start brushing with the mixer brush tool. Now the strokes should be very gentle and not long, short, gentle strokes, so that we don't pick highlights and drop them into shadows. That would distort your image. And then we don't give the same tone to the various parts of the face. That will make your image flat, and that will defeat the purpose of retouching. Because retouching doesn't mean making your image flat, but then just enhancing whatever is already there. So let's start by brushing. So I'm using a Wacom tablet. So what I do is I just tap here, do a few strokes and then release. Tap here, a few strokes and release. What that is doing is blending the tones around that region. So I pick a similar tone here and then just brush it around that same region. I won't pick a tone from here and then brush it here. You see what's happening? This is not what we want. This is flattening your image. So let's undo that. And then, so once we are in the shadows, we just brush over the shadows, then look for the intersection where the various tones intersect. Our aim here is to merge them seamlessly in a way that the intersection won't show. It will blend in nicely. Now let's zoom into just this small area that we worked on. Focus on this place. Now I'm going to disable the frequency separation layer. This is before, this is now. Kindly focus here, because that's the only place we've worked on. This is before, this is now. So you see, it's just a slight change. And yes, that's good. Retouching doesn't mean you should make so much change, just correcting some slight things. So the 9 radius that we chose is working well. So let's keep it up. I will just do this. In fact, let's do it just here. So as you can see, I'm just picking from around the same region and brushing over. Don't be tempted to pick from one area and send it to a different area. No. You will flatten your images or you will get undesirable results. So as you can see here, I'm still in the highlights. So once in a while, you disable and then re-enable, disable, re-enable. So we zoom in and then check, disable, enable. That's doing the work for us. So let's continue to the other places. Now it takes a lot of time to master this. It took me about 3 solid months to get used to this. When you start, you'll be seeing some nasty results that you can't relate to, and you might want to give up. But no, don't give up. Just continue practicing. Practice for a while and you'll get used to it. You can't just pick this tool up and then one day you just master it. No, you need to practice. And as the common saying goes, practice makes perfect. So let's do once in a while, do before and after. Before and after. So we are getting some results. So let's keep it up. So I'll just fast forward it and then show you what we have once I'm done with her face. All right, welcome back, guys. So this is what we were able to achieve with just frequency separation, working on the low frequency layer, which is the color layer. Now this is before and after. You see, it's just a slight change, nothing major, because that's how I like my images. I don't like to over edit them. So if you look at this, this is before, now. Before, now. It's just something slight. So if we look at this and we realize, okay, there are certain blemishes that just showed up that we want to work on, we won't need to do anything on the color layer anymore. We move to the high frequency layer. Then in this case, I prefer using the clone stamp, which is this. I prefer using the clone stamp to work on this. Now, I want it to be only on this high frequency layer. So the sample, I'm going to sample from current layer only. Please, it's very important. Now let's leave it on current and below and then try sampling. I leave my flow with my clone stamp. I always leave the one, if I'm working on the skin, the flow is always at 5%, opacity 100. Now let's work on current and below and see what happens. So you press on Option on Mac or Alt on PC or Windows, and then see the tip changes. You sample the area. We want to clear this blemish. You sample the area and then you brush on. So you see what's happening. Because now we are sampling current and below, all the layers. So let's undo that and then select only current layer and then sample that area and brush over a couple of times. Now you see it's working the way we want. So here we look for the blemishes that we want to. So in this case, we are not blurring the skin. We are just picking from a part of a skin that we like and brushing over a part we don't like. So the texture still remains and the flow is at 5%. So we are not completely removing the texture there. That's the difference. So we just quickly go around where we see we have some blemishes to take care of. This place has some blemishes, so let's just take care of that. Here also, we are not trying to make this image look very perfect. We just want it to be lovely and take care of the various blemishes. So it's the same procedure if you were to be doing a high-end beauty retouch. It's the same procedure, just that your settings and strokes may have to change a bit. so that if I was doing something very high and I wanted that kind of plastic look, my radius would have been less. But that would make it look too much plastic, very unreal. Well, if that's what a client wants, you know, sometimes you have to pay attention to your clients. Sometimes also it's what you post out there that attracts the clients you get. So if you continue posting plasticky images, you get clients who will be requesting for plastic outcome. But if your images are close to real, your clients will know and they will come for those kind of images. So we are still clearing some blemishes, even though we did the blemish remover in the previous video. We are still left with some blemishes to remove, which is what we are doing right here. So let's assume we are okay with what we have here. Let's zoom out and go around. So this is what we have here. Let's just take a bit off here. Now this is the image we have after using the mixer brush tool, and then mixer brush tool on the low frequency layer, and then the clone stamp tool on the high frequency layer. Now we still have certain areas that have difference in color, so we could use dodge and burn to fix those, but then that's for another series. I'm going to use the normal brush on the empty layer. This layer is just an empty layer. You can create your own, so it's no magical layer or anything. It's just been renamed to correcting tone. So now let's disable this and enable. You see, it has no effect. There's nothing. It has no effect on the image. So we are now going to build up on it. So with that, what I do is I choose the brush tool. Where is the brush tool? Right here. The normal brush tool. Then the flow, I'll go to 2%, opacity 100, smoothing 0, because I don't want that trail, you know, when you brush, that trail that follows it. I don't want it. I want it to just go right away. So what we do is this area, we realize some parts are too deep, some parts are too, and then here also. So I'll just pick up a color that between the shadows and the highlights, and then just brush over a couple of times. And this is 2% flow, so it's going to build up gradually. So I'll do the same for so as you sample, you don't just sample one color and then use it all over. That will make your image flat. I sample around and then brush over a couple of times. Sample around, brush over. So this is close to airbrushing. But because this layer is in between the low frequency and the high frequency, it doesn't affect the texture. So you still have texture there. What we are working on now is just affecting the tones, the colors. So let's see, this is before, this is now. See, before and now. That's acceptable. So let's just keep it up. Just sample, don't just pick one area and then brush it over the whole place. That will make your image look flat. So sample and then brush. Sample and brush. That's the technique. So we do the same thing here. Anytime you see the circle popping up, it means I'm sampling. So you see I continuously sample and then brush. I don't use the same sample to brush over different places. No, as I keep saying, that will flatten your image. You take away the definitions. So this same process can be used to fix hotspots. Now, what are hotspots? Sometimes you shoot and then because you let the light point at your subject, you see this huge bright place on the forehead or on the cheeks, that kind of thing. Those are hotspots. So you can use this same technique to fix those hotspots. As I said, this could have been done using dodge and burn, but That's for another video. So for now, we're just doing this here. Now let's disable it. This is before and now. Before and now. See, the difference isn't that big, but it has really enhanced the image. That's what retouching is about, not transformation. If you want to transform it, that's a whole different thing. That should fall under image manipulation. We are not intending to manipulate this image. All we want to do is make it look better than it was. So I'm still sampling and brushing, as you can see. Still sampling and brushing around the same areas. Don't sample and then brush in a different area. You will destroy your image if you do that. So now we have the neck area. Most people have this kind of, is it tan or something around the neck, where the neck appears darker than the face or the chest and shoulders. So that's the situation we have here. So in order to not mess up the whole image, I'll create a new empty layer and then name it neck. So whatever we are going to do here is going to be on this layer. So we have this layer there, so that in case we make a mistake, we can just delete this and then restart, so that we won't have to delete everything. Now with this place is too dark, this place is fair, this place is also fair. Now with this, I did skin tone correction in CaptureOne before getting here. So that's how come the tone is even already here. But this place, I didn't want to push it too hard, so I just had to leave here now because I knew we were going to correct this in Photoshop. So let's sample here something very close to that. Here, this like in the middle, then you brush over a couple of times. Very minimal. So that will blend the neck. Let's take a quick look at it. This is before, this is now. See, before and now. We are not intending to take away the shadows, but just to blend it in. So let's go in now. See, it's still a bit darker than this because it's normal, but we have just added the tones around to it so that it looks uniform. See, this is before and after. So now we can say that this image is already looking close to perfect. Let's take a look at disable this whole frequency separation layer. This is our image after healing, spot removal, and this is after frequency separation. Before, after. So as you guys can see, without dodging and burning, we have a presentable image. This is how it's going to look like if we should export it. We have a presentable image that we can send to our clients or post on social media as desired. So this brings us to the end of this frequency separation using the mixer brush tool technique. I'll have the rest coming up in different videos, so don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell sign so that you don't get to miss any of my tutorials when I upload them. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I would like to thank you for watching.